Without question, one of the most legendary combatants to emerge from the Naruto series is Madara Uchiha. I'm not saying he's the most powerful, but there is this seemingly universal agreement that Madara is the best fighter we've seen in Naruto, likely due to the complete domination of his opponents we see during the Fourth War, like taking on the entire 4th Division in pure taijutsu while performing genjutsu on opponents mid-combat, taking part in guerrilla warfare using his own enemy blade to kill them, before subsequently dropping 2 meteors on them at the same time, making one of the 5 Kaguya at the time, that being Gaara, question if he had the power of a god. Kishimoto's ability to make Madara seem unbeatable while having him being beaten multiple times definitely shines through, as we still have people here in 2022 who think three-eyed Madara could beat Fuse Momoshiki and Kaguya. That is somewhat of an extreme interpretation of Madara being unbeatable. I think those people are somewhat detached from reality with their interpretation of Madara's strength, but regardless of how we feel about who Madara can beat, we all know Madara is strong. So I thought it'd be a fun idea to make a video on how to kill Madara. I don't know if I need to state the obvious or not, but this is not going to be a step-by-step tutorial on how you at home can take out Madara Uchiha, but there, now you know. I've seen another creator do the similar type of video to this about Gojo, so if you want to watch that, I'll leave it linked in the description so you can check it out. But before we get into the main topic of the video, be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if this isn't your first time being here, or maybe check out some of my other content to find a video you may enjoy. But let's get into the video. The first portion of this video will be spent going over how to kill Madara in a story sense, or from a narrative perspective. When I first got done with Naruto and got involved with the community, a large portion of the people in it were under the belief that Madara should have been the final villain, and even nowadays there is an incredibly popular theory that everyone in Boruto is still under the influence of the Infinite Tsukuyomi, and that all the events in the show have taken place in Naruto's dream. This theory is so popular that the English voice of Madara, Neil Kaplan, made a TikTok and dubbed over fan-made lines, which if I could find the original of, I'll leave linked in the description for you to watch on your own time. The ending of Naruto seemingly left a sour taste in the mouth of some of the fans who believed Madara had earned that spot as the final villain, obviously excluding Sasuke. The main problem for these people is Kaguya's introduction. A rumor had started a long time ago that Kaguya was made the final villain simply because they couldn't figure out a way to properly kill off Madara. And not only is this, like I said, a complete rumor and untrue, it doesn't even make sense. Madara was supposed to be sealed away by Naruto and Sasuke with the seals on their palm, the same way Kaguya was supposed to be. And how does introducing a stronger villain into your story make sense when you couldn't figure out how to beat the weaker one? It's just a really silly rumor that's kind of baffling. I think Madara's death was handled very well for a few reasons. We get insight on his character at various points that kind of show how far gone he really is and detached from reality. The first of which being Naruto absolutely never tries to use his most infamous technique of talk no jutsu on Madara. This, I believe, was done purposefully by Kishimoto to show us that someone as far gone as Madara isn't simply going to be talked down from his position. Like Madara had mentioned earlier to the 5 Kage, weakness disgusts him, and to a man who believes himself as completely in the right and the strongest of all, giving in and conceding your worldview to someone who is weaker than you without fighting is simply not a possibility. We're also told by Tobirama after the Hokage revived at the Uzumaki hideout that the Sharingan sort of aids in darkness and drives you further and further into insanity and or despair, with Madara's likely being a combination of both, leaning more towards despair, as he says to Hashirama after learning all the history from Kaguya and the Sage of Six Paths from the Uchiha stone tablet that was modified by Zetsu. He despaired, and there was no such thing as true dreams in this world, that humans are destined to hate each other so long as chakra exists, that hate can't end, so he'll cast the giant genjutsu, obviously being the Infinite Tsukuyomi, to create an entirely new world. Then enter Kaguya, someone who wants all the chakra created by Madara's own trust in himself. I cover this later in the video more in depth, so keep a mental note of it for now, but Madara is only ever beaten by people he trusts stabbing him in the back. Madara's trust in Black Zetsu, who he believed to be his will, led to the embodiment of chakra being recreated, Kaguya Otsutsuki, and beating this embodiment of chakra, or the physical manifestation of what supposedly curses humanity, is supposed to show that Madara is wrong in his way of thinking, which he accepts as he lay on his back, beaten and blind, losing his eye powers which he so heavily prided himself on having. Hashirama tells him that they were both too hasty in trying to achieve their dreams, and that they didn't have to be the ones to complete them. It's more important to cultivate those who come after them, and Madara's response to this is he would have failed anyway then, since he never liked for someone to stand behind him, which, as I mentioned earlier, is how he was inevitably defeated both times that he died. I think Madara's death was handled very well, and Kishimoto did a great job closing out his character. Another way to beat Madara is simply to be Hashirama Senju. Madara and Hashirama have fought time and time again, and it has been consistently shown that Hashirama comes out on the winning side of these battles, even when he and Madara are stated equal in combat ability. As kids, Madara and Hashirama would train with each other, doing taijutsu drills and skipping rocks across the pond, and Hashirama's ability was superior to Madara's to the extent that awakening his Sharingan wasn't enough to put them on the same level. Madara himself as a child had killed several capable Senju fighters prior to awakening his Sharingan, yet a child Hashirama completely eclipsed him in combat. Even during their taijutsu drills, Hashirama and Madara would clash at the same time, and Madara would be sent to the ground, whilst Hashirama would still be standing and only be sent to the ground when a rock hits him off guard. The point of these drills was to master all jutsu and cover any weaknesses, so that the adults around them would finally listen to their word. To which Madara's response is that he's already stronger than most of the adults around him anyway. This training would continue until Madara and Hashirama's respective families would both become aware of the other family name and order each one of them to kill the other. Madara and Hashirama tried warning each other of the attacks their families had planned on launching, but it failed. Madara's father Tajima and Hashirama's father Butsuma had nearly equal strength, same as with their children Tobirama and Izuna. So instead of going for each other in the first clash, their opening move was to try and kill each other's child, a move stopped by both Hashirama and Madara. When asked by his father if they could beat Hashirama's family 3-on-3, Madara replied no for the sole fact that Hashirama was stronger than him, implying that they had already surpassed their fathers, which is already sort of implied earlier by Hashirama and Madara both stopping their father's attacks, even though they are launched after the attacks of their father's launch and from a further distance away. There is a common misconception that Madara was actually winning one of the fights with Hashirama during a flashback, since Hashirama was breathing heavy and Madara wasn't after Madara goes to Izuna's body. But the context surrounding the scene sort of goes against the interpretation of Madara winning this battle. Hashirama is breathing heavy, yes, but I would like to add breathing heavy doesn't mean Hashirama was losing. Could simply mean he was slower to catch his breath than Madara was, and Madara is visibly more bruised than Hashirama is, showing that he's taken more damage, plus the fact that Hashirama has a healing factor whilst Madara doesn't, so his damage could easily have been less and less as the fight progressed, while Madara was never afforded this same luxury. Aside from this, Hashirama also literally says in the next panel after breathing heavy that Madara cannot beat him, and his word should be valid considering he has fought Madara his entire life, literally. After gaining the EMS from his brother's death, Madara returns to fight Hashirama again, and in a battle that literally lasts the entire day, a whole 24 hours, not kidding, Hashirama beats Madara yet again. Then Madara agrees to start Konoha with Hashirama, and when he later turns to destroy the village this time, it's stated in the data book they are equals in combat. Hashirama still beats Madara again. Being as strong as Hashirama will only get you so far when dealing with someone like Madara, though with some people thinking it's highly debatable if Hashirama could even beat Edo Madara if Madara was going all out, which some people think he wasn't due to Madara not using Tengai Shinsei meteors during the fight. However, I think this argument is flawed for a few reasons. Let's say Madara did use Tengai Shinsei during his fight with Hashirama. All that would have happened is Hashirama would have regenerated due to being an Edo, and even then, I'd say it's probable that Madara's Perfect Susanoo is stronger than his Tengai Shinsei ability. When Madara brings out his Perfect Susanoo, he calls it his full power, which would obviously mean anything he's used before that he does not consider his full power. And Hashirama combats his Perfect Susanoo, not only as an Edo, but while he's alive as well. Like I mentioned earlier, being as strong as Hashirama won't always grant you a win though, as any form of Madara that has access to Limbo clones, like one Rinnegan Sage Madara or any Madara with the Jubi, would absolutely slap around full power Hashirama like he's nothing. The next way to kill Madara somewhat ties into the first way, considering Hashirama was able to take advantage of it to actually beat Madara, that being Madara's backside. Ever since Madara was a kid, there has been this thing about going behind his back that has made him uncomfortable. We learned this around the first time he meets Hashirama. Apparently, it's to the point where Madara can't even pee if someone is standing behind him. Madara probably trained this ability away later in life, since he tells Hashirama when leaving the village that no one is capable of taking his backside. I went into detail about this in another one of my videos, how the only people to take down Madara were people who he trusted and stabbed him in the back, and how his Susanoo has two faces, probably because of him not liking his backside to be taken. But I think it's a really interesting aspect of his character, considering how he does die both times after saying no one can take his backside. Like I mentioned earlier, the first time was with Hashirama, and then the second time was with Black Zetsu, which inevitably led to him dying permanently. The next way to kill Madara is only going to apply to Madara in his Edo state, but you could just seal Madara away. And this doesn't just apply to Naruto either. We've seen characters from other anime and franchises seal away beings more powerful than themselves. And these two examples I'm about to bring up don't only apply to Edo Madara, they could be done to people who are alive as well. In Dragon Ball, we see Master Roshi's teacher use the Mafuba to seal away King Piccolo, but die from using the technique. This only seems to be a drawback of the technique when it's used by weaker people. We see both Piccolo and Goku use this technique later in Dragon Ball, and they don't die from it. The technique can seemingly be used to seal someone inside of anything with a lid. King Piccolo was sealed inside of an electric rice cooker, and Kami was sealed inside of a small bottle. The next example of sealing comes from the MCU, and it's Odin. Odin doesn't have a crazy important role in the MCU, so you'd be like, huh? It's Thor's dad. But anyway, Odin is stated to have used his life force to imprison his daughter Hela. It's not exactly sealing, but it's fundamentally the same thing. We know Hela was sealed away for around 5,000 years, a time span of which Madara simply would die, considering we know shinobi live around average human lifespan ages. Unless they have some weird power up like Madara after he got the God Tree or something. You could say this might not work on Jubi Madara after gaining the God Tree, since Madara claims to be immortal and says that he has quote unquote gained in eternity, which is fine to be honest. Now we can move on to the easiest and final way to kill Madara, which is to simply completely overpower him. Like I mentioned during the intro of the video, Madara is a pretty smart fighter. You're not going to beat him by just being stronger than him, especially some of the later forms of Madara. In fact, Madara sort of concedes to Might Guy's power being greater than his own durability in the 8th gate, saying that he wants to avoid getting hit by the fist throwing the attacks of the Sekizo after being launched into a gigantic hole by the force of one of Might Guy's blows. Madara also quite literally gets half of his torso blown off when he takes a kick from Guy's strongest attack, while claiming that Guy almost killed him, despite his crazy regen. But this is before he gets the God Tree, which takes his regen up to a complete another level. Though you should be able to take Madara out at this point, just by creating an attack that can blow literally all of him away, like a massive Senjutsu or Sengon, or maybe if Might Guy came back and hit him 2 times with the Night Guy. Something like that should be able to blow Madara completely away and actually kill him. Before we move completely on from the fight with Guy, I'd like to go back on it and sort of break it down a bit, because I think it's misinterpreted, and I think that's largely due in part to a lot of people not seeing it in a long time. This is a great moment for Guy and a great moment for Madara as well, so let's start with Guy's side of things. Kishimoto's use of flashbacks in the manga is far superior to the random flashbacks shown in the anime all the time. The way Kishimoto uses them is to show a moment mentioned in the past coming true as predicted. An example of this would be B in the flashback with his brother claiming that he would one day be stronger than him, before we see in the present day that B is overpowering A's Lariat with his own. The same is true at this moment for Guy. Using the 8th gate is supposedly his way of showing that he has finally surpassed Kakashi and can do something Kakashi couldn't even dream of doing on his own. We see in the flashback before Night Guy is launched that Sakumo, talking to a young Kakashi, mentions that at the rate Guy is training, he will become a stronger shinobi than Kakashi. Flashing back to the present, we see Kakashi saying that it ended up just as his dad predicted. But I'm sure you didn't need to know that 8th gate Guy was stronger than Kakashi. It's pretty apparent even ignoring all of the story driven stuff. I just mentioned this is also part of the genius I mentioned with Kishimoto's writing during the intro, because part of this Madara fight is getting absolutely ragdolled by Guy, but you never really get the feeling that Guy is going to win. Madara still somehow seems invincible here. During the Sekizo, Guy is running around on air, pounding Madara with shot after shot, and the force of his hits are so massive that they literally cause Madara to start to bleed and be unable to move. Then Madara, who is immobile, puts up a shield with his True Seeker Orb, and Guy, with just a little bit of help from Gaara, Kakashi, Minato, and Lee, forces him out with a punch that shatters the True Seeker Orb. How do you make Madara seem strong after such a heavy beating gets put on him? You have him get up and say he's excited and having fun. Guy even thinks to himself he got up from a Sekizo barrage, obviously implying that that's not normal. This is the same as Madara getting beaten on by the Biju. The act of Madara just standing in front of all the Biju and challenging them to a fight just makes him seem strong. I also didn't notice this before and only noticed upon my rereading, but Madara can actually see the 8 gates with his Rinnegan. I've already gone over what happened when Guy used the Night Guy, so we'll leave the Guy stuff here and move on. Finding characters that can overpower Madara is kind of hard, especially when he's at full power with his third eye because of the amount of hacks he has. He's basically immortal, and if it's nighttime, everyone without a Sasuke level Rinnegan or above would get caught in the Infinite Tsukuyomi. It's also worth mentioning that Madara was weakened after casting the Infinite Tsukuyomi when Zetsu stabbed him in the back. I've talked about this before as to why it isn't all that much of a feat for Black Zetsu in my video on Madara versus the Akatsuki, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much here. But as we know, these eyes bring you power. Obito says if Madara got both his Rinnegan back, he'd virtually be unstoppable. And when Madara gets his third Rinne Sharingan, we see he has 9 Tomo in it after casting the Infinite Tsukuyomi. He goes down to 6, with added context from Sasuke during the Shin arc and the plus 10 chapters from Naruto. We know that a decrease in chakra can cause the Rinnegan to lose some of his Tomo. For Sasuke, it's searching entering Kaguya's dimensions, and Madara starts to get his Tomo back after he gets a large influx of chakra on par with, in Naruto's own words, greater than the amount of chakra the Ten Tails had, showing that the Infinite Tsukuyomi may cost an entire 10 Tails worth of chakra to cast, maybe more. But that's all from me though. Obviously, if you disagree with anything I said, please leave it in the comments. I appreciate the feedback. This video was fun to make. I really enjoyed talking about Madara. He's one of my favorite characters of all time, let alone just in Naruto. But as always, have a nice day.